As a quick addendum, I found this in the Barnes Noble. You see this a lot. This is a British magazine, of course. Right? It was like 20 something bucks, but I mean, it's like a book. And you had a bunch of these. You had other ones. I remember that I didn't get, but I decided to get this. Well, I'll tell you why. I decided to get this also in conjunction with looking at this stuff. Okay, there were photos in here I've never seen, and it's pretty much a good. It brings a lot of this stuff. It goes through most of the German aircraft, the ones that were made. There's a couple at the end. You know, they don't have a lot of the ones that were never conceived, which are some of the fascinating ones. And of course, they don't have my favorite. They don't have the UFOs, the German UFO weapons. Right? But it was a pretty good indicator of it. So, of course, it's a British magazine, so it's in the pounds. But it's like I said, this is essentially like a book. I got this at a local Barnes and Noble of an undisclosed location, but you know I'm in Florida, right? Florida, and essentially, I notice more and more Barnes and Nobles are changing their format now. They're sort of making them smaller, and I guess you could say they're fitting more books more efficiently in it, but I don't really like the new way they do it. And there's just a real, I don't know, what's the word? I don't know. There's a real like rainbow quality I see in there. It doesn't mean, I don't even mean exactly what you think. I mean expansive, like a clown wig, like a clown world thing in there. So I prefer the old Barnes and Nobles, like the wood and everything. So I have decided that every time I go to one of these alternative Barnes and Nobles that are building up, I must buy something that has Third Reich weapon on the cover. I must. I've done it twice. Okay, so now I must do. Every time I end up at one, for whatever reason, I must buy something that has something like this on the cover. It's mandatory for me now. Okay, so I'm going through it now. It's a British magazine, so you're gonna have a lot of the what you call like the boomer truth regime, bulldog nationalism, stuff for the older Brits. Right. They mentioned here the most capable fighter force, one of the most capable fighter forces in history, the Luftwaffe. Right? One shouldn't forget, however, that it was formed under the Nazis and shares its responsibilities for the crime of that regime. From the British. I'm like, you don't know how hard I'm laughing in my soul. But regardless, it's pretty good. The amount of photos are here. Anyway, so it is going over it, right? Once again, right? The gliding, right? The huge gliding offer the healthy and activity for young people in the 30s, but also train many pilots for the Luftwaffe needs. Oh, the National Socialist Flyer Corps. Look at that. Gliding. Glidings are fascinating to me, but, let's focus on here. They go over the whole idea of it. Of course, the night fighting and the early radar. They go over the early planes. So, of course, the Messerschmitt. Like I said, one thing I was not as familiar with so many of these night fighters, particularly these double engine ones, right? The Screech Owls, Dornier 17, 215, the other Messerschmitt, the BF-110. You don't think of these planes a lot. And of course, later in the war, they sort of are meat for like the P-51s and whatnot. But at one point, this was considered, right, the fighter bomber. This was considered the future. Right? What actually ended up happening was your fighter escort drew out your Luftwaffe, and the attrition helped to slowly whittle them down as your bombers, even though they kept getting, the bombers were shot down frequently, they just couldn't be stopped. Allied types caged fighters, right? Boit fighters, booty fighters. My booty. What is this? A mosquito. What is this? Wisconsin's version of the P-38 was flown to accident by the American deserter Martin Monty. Who is that guy? I need to look him up. So of course the Focke-Wulf, right? The butcher bird. Man, no. This is probably one of the best planes they have, and this thing really, interesting too to come from a British magazine. There's a little bit of sneering in some of these things, especially as you get to the end. it almost makes you wish the tide had turned and Britain did get invaded. And then you'll see all the things that the British would have done that would be considered silly and stupid and a waste of life. Okay, that's Earth. I think that's Earth 32. I'm not sure at all, right? Everyone forgets, right? Oh, the Battle of Britain. We beat the Luftwaffe. Meanwhile, right? When British and Canadian forces conducted the Dieppe raid, remember that? The poor Canadians would bore the brunt of that. The RAF came off second best in what was the largest air battle of the war. So the biggest fight in the war, the British got their asses kicked, right? Losing 106 aircraft, 62 of them Spitfires, most of them in combat with this butcher bird, right? You know, the Germans lost a lot much fewer. So that's interesting. And the biggest fight, the British got their asses kicked. So of course they always bring up the thing with the Focke-Wulf. You saw this in the book I had gone over, the comic of the Bamming Nazi Germany by Wayne Van Zandt, right? In defense of Germany, the Focke-Wulf mounted attacks on Allied bombers by day and night, the most effective day tactic against the United States Air Force Army Air Force, right? The Army Air Force bombers was the head-on attack. I had gone over that, which increased the impact of the cannon shells against the most vulnerable part of the bomber, right? Mainly the crew compartment, and most of your guns are not pointed in that direction. But essentially, you're playing chicken with this huge aircraft. The fucking balls they had. And then, of course, the schematics for all the, they had some really nice, these fold-out things were pretty cool. Of course, the Junker, which I mispronounced, I'm still being punished by my ancestors for that. From Schnellbomber to Nachtjäger, right? Night Hunter. So, I told you, these are the ones that at the end with the missiles, they turn these into like guided unmanned missiles. But apparently this was one of the most successful designs. Literally could do anything, right? Good handling, endurance, an effective night fighter. Go for it. There's the missile, right? I had mentioned. Of course, the cool night, the radar they had, right? Anyway, we go through. There's some I guess dead ends, you'd say. This was the first twin fighter jet, right? The Henkel actually was the first one, but it was more maneuverable than the Me-262. But there was a little bit of politics involved. Only the Germans have that problem, right? So interesting. One was flown in mock combat with a Focke-Wulf, that formidable thing, and it was easily defeated. Remember, of course, with the jet fighters, in air-to-air combat, man, they would tear these fighters up. But you gotta slow down and hit the bombers, and you gotta land, right, or take off, and that's when the vast majority, the much more numerous Allied piston fighters would swarm on them. Very honorable combatants. So now they're upgrading the Messerschmitt. And you get the now we're starting to get the jet fighter. Right, this is what I had mentioned. Right, right. This guy, Walter Nowotny. I think that's a Polish. He was brought down by P-51s. Right, despite the superiority to conventional fighters, they were invulnerable on their takeoff runs and landing approaches. That's why they got to the point where when these guys would land, the bases they would have a lot of flak waiting for the Allies. When you see, they shot down jet fighters, it wasn't in dogfights, right? And pretty much, and that R4M rocket I mentioned, when they were able to be concentrated, and that's the whole thing. When you see all these videos about these, like this one, that 163, you see like that video game series simulator the guy was doing, one or two of these things, you have 5 of these things, you don't have enough. You have nowhere near enough. One of these things, 2 of these things shouldn't be going after 30 bombers with friggin' 20 P-51s. It's over. They don't have the numbers. Okay, that's it. So, when they were able to be concentrated against the bombers, their effect could be devastating. A total of 27 Luftwaffe pilots became jet aces by scoring 5 or more kills. Although remember, to be an ace, you had at 10 kills. The Me-262, although many were expert on propeller-driven fighters, right? So then of course they bring up Chuck Yeager. What do you think of Chuck Yeager? I don't even know. He broke the sound barrier. First jet I ever saw, I shot it down. Whatever. What town are you from, Chuck? I'm sure it's. I'm gonna find out. Hopefully it's a drug-infested shithole. Wow. Call me Tom Petty. All right. So, of course, the Comet. Its performance was fantastic, but like I said, these things were gliders, right? And you had enough fuel for a few minutes. Yeah, I got over this. Right. This guy here. All salute to this guy. All right. Siegfried Schubert destroyed 3 B-17s in August 1944, but his Comet exploded on startup. Right. Yeah, and that little propeller, right? It drove the aircraft's electrical systems. I salute you, comrade. Right. And actually, one of these, I think, they had a mixed record, right? But I think they sent one of these to Japan. Anyway, I gotta round it out. I know you're getting probably sick of this, but you guys just chilling. Right. The night sky, right? The night bombers. This guy actually was pretty cool. Oh, he worked in Argentina after the war. That's a win, yes. So, and they bring up just the night owl, right? The HE-129. This thing is crazy looking. This thing was crazy. You see, also these weapons. They had like these weapons. They had mentioned the Jaeger Faust on some of the ME-163s. One of them had it, man. It blew a friggin' Lancaster apart easily. But these other things, they had the upward slanted, put it behind a cockpit. The Schlag music, right? These things were devastating. Interesting. Not enough were made, right? It was probably the best night fighter of the war, but was not fielded in large enough numbers. Right, well, isn't that the whole thing? And look at this cool fold out. That's what I'm saying. This was worth it. This is like a book, right? I went over that. The Dornier 335, right? The ME-262, right? The Focke push me pull you, right? The push pull. Look at this freaking thing. Right, the official name was the Arrow, but pilots named it the Anteater. Yeah, I guess. There's the double one. I had gone over that. Of course, the 162, right? I had gone over this. It caused some problems, right? The People's Fighter made out of wood. And pretty much, they would have got the bugs out in time, but pretty much this was all just made so that it could be studied. But man, that's why I love the Luftwaffe 46, where you see these things fulfilling their potential. All right. And one of these took down apparently a Tempest. So it's still disputed, but right, so I know, right? The last major battle, they make it sound like it was. It was. Remember, they actually did a lot of damage in this, but they lost a lot of guys doing it. And like I said, the whole point of that is you can't get those. The Americans, the British. I'm even gonna talk about the Soviets. You could lose tons of dudes, right? If you're German or you're Japanese, right, you lose a guy like that. You can't replace him, right? Anyway, right, this is where they were slightly unhinged. Now they make an in-joke about the idea that this guy may have died because the thing came loose because they're saying it was a hinge. I've heard about the hinge like coming loose. It's probably what killed him, right? Whereas like his head went back. Right, and it gives you the idea here, right? Right, reputedly 5-man. Well, that's interesting. The only one that you know of is Lothar here. So he secured a simple furniture hinge, slightly unhinged. You take it, you fucking. All right, they're just being cheeky. So I have more balls than any of you sons of bitches. 36 were completed, 10 actually ready for launch. Fortunately for their pilots, no bombers passed them with their small combat radius. There's the rockets. Whatever. Like I said, there's a little cheeky thing in here, but and of course the flying wing. They actually made this thing. Nice. And the unfinished the Wunderwaffe, but late I had gone over that, right? The 1101, the Messerschmitt. Right, that's because that's where you get your Soviet and American fighters. So and of course, right, this funny thing. I'm not even going to mention this. Come on, man. It's like, you're a fighter, super fighter. It's like, dude, that thing looks retarded. I'd rather fight this friggin' thing. That thing at least looks kind of cool, right? So anyway, all right. Enough of the. No, never enough. Never enough. Uh, Barnes and Nobles, you've been warned. But only if you're that new Barnes and Nobles. All right. Later.